my name is Kerry Walsh. I was born with a rare disease called spinal muscular atrophy. And around the age of 1 is when I was diagnosed, and then I was given the life expectancy of 5 years old.
Mm.
With that, you're often not really aware of what's going on and what your disease means. So I was kind of just sent home and told to just enjoy, my parents were told to enjoy the time they had with me.
Mm.
And we sort of made the most of the moments we had and then slowly realized that we were beating the years because I'm now 27. And we just decided to make the most of it. We live every day to the fullest, and I'm just sort of taking it one day at a time.
Yeah.
Then, when I matriculated, I decided to do something with my platform and my story because I feel that everyone has a purpose with their story. So, I started motivational speaking and
Mm.
I started in schools. And now I do businesses, team buildings, keynote speaking,
Mm.
pretty much anyone that's willing to listen to me speak.
Yeah. Very, very inspirational. And so, before we get deep into the work that you have been doing, can you please let us know, for someone who is listening and watching, what is spinal muscular atrophy?
So, spinal muscular atrophy is a degenerative muscle disorder. So, as you get older, your muscles slowly deteriorate. So, I often use the example of when I was younger, I could put my arms above my head, and now I can kind of only move from like my elbows downwards. So, you have full sensation of your body. It's just as you get older, your muscles get weaker and weaker. And it's always interesting to find out where you have lots of muscles that you may not even think about. So, like your mouth and your teeth, so like eating gets harder, my eyes will get weaker, and then the most common one is that your lungs get weaker and therefore you stop being able to breathe on your own.
Very, very, very interesting stuff. And look, man, I feel like you've beaten the odds. To have been given that you at 5 years was your life expectancy, and like finding yourself being 27 years old now. Sheesh, man, that's very interesting. And I'm seeing here that you started advocating and reaching out and trying to do all of this work at the age of 17, right? So how do you feel that all of this and all of these things that you've gone through have shaped your life and formed where you are right now and the person that you are now as an adult?
A lot of my story and perspective is definitely from lived experience, and you
Mm.
can only sort of share what you know and share what you've lived through. So I often think that I can only share and speak because I've experienced it, and therefore I'm grateful for the experiences that I've had. And you just have to take advantage of them being a learning moment and something that you can use going forward. I definitely only ever want to speak from a personal experience. I never want to pretend that I know everything about what it's like to live with a disability in this country. That's a very individual situation, and it's definitely based on everyone's perspective. I mean, even with SMA, no SMA patient lives exactly the same experience.
Mm. So have you found that throughout your journey that these other people who are living with the same condition that you have reached out to you, or other people even outside of the space that you are involved in have reached out and said, you know what, Kerry, you're doing such amazing work, and I'd love to get involved. And I was inspired by your story to also go out there and try to reach out and help out wherever I can. Have you found that that's something that's happened?
I definitely think I tend to connect with a lot of young individuals, especially women or girls. And I think it's just because they're looking for someone who has lived a similar experience.
Mm.
And I had a couple of people reach out just basically wanting to talk. They don't necessarily want advice, but they also just want to feel heard and they want to know that someone wants to listen to them. But I also think with joining the rare diseases community, you meet a lot of people who are dealing with a very similar situation. Any
Mm.
sort of rare disease is very unknown and uncommon, and with that, I think we have a commonality and a connection that we all sort of can live through together.
Yeah. And you spoke of, starting to advocate for accessibility and disability awareness. I just want to ask, what inspired you to start that, at an early age of 17 years old?
Everybody wants to feel welcome and connected, and they want to feel that they have a place in this world. And when you go places and you can't get in the front door, you never feel that you have a place, and you don't feel like you're welcome in those places. So I took it as my responsibility to be the change I wanted to see and enforce the change of making it an accessible place where everybody feels they have a place that they can go and feel welcome.
Yeah. So, in communities that are mostly inspired by change, what role do you think change plays in one's life?
I think change has the biggest role to play because if we don't change, we don't develop. If we don't change, we don't grow. If we don't change, we don't learn. And life's all about learning and changing. And I know for a fact that I've never been a big fan of change because I like consistency.
Yeah.
But I've also then learned that if I don't get on board with the change, I'm not going to learn and grow. And therefore, the consistency is actually just you being stuck.
Yeah.
Very, very cool stuff. I'm seeing here that, my producer is telling me that some of the things that you're involved in is the K Motivation SA. So for someone who's not aware of, who Kerry Walsh is and how she's involved with the K Motivation, what is the K Motivation SA?
K Motivation SA is what I like to call my passion project.
Your
It's
passion
definitely-
project. I love that.
Yes.
I love that so much. Yeah.
Everyone has that thing that keeps their soul
Yeah.
going and keeps their heart beating, and this is definitely it.
Yeah.
It ranges from me sharing personal blogs and stories to me sharing information about my book, my speaking engagements, just sharing maybe a moment that happened that I wanted to share. And it's definitely sort of like a going, living sort of blog and life story of me on a day-to-day basis. And I also try and share awareness and different events that people can attend or different books or videos or podcasts that people could watch that may connect to them and their disease specifically.
Yeah.
Very, very, very cool stuff. If you're wondering who we are in conversation with this morning, we're in conversation with Kerry Walsh, a motivational speaker and an author, and someone who's definitely, absolutely beating the odds of being given a life expectancy of only 5 years and finding herself in 2025 at the age of 27 and giving back as much as she can and doing such amazing work in and around our communities. And if you're wondering who she is, she says here her advocacy accolades include ambassadorship for Nappy Run, recognition in the Margaret Hirsch Business Awards, and the Toastmasters Competent Communicator certification. Kerry's written contributions in Voices of Disability and her memoir Finding My Feet amplify diverse perspectives, while her fundraising efforts like golf events and sticker sales support marginalized individuals, people who are doing such amazing stuff in and around our communities. And you know that this is what we do right here on the Voga Breakfast Show every Monday morning, specifically trying to bring these people right to you, to your screens, and of course also right here in studio with us in conversation and sharing all their stories and all this beautiful work that they're involved in.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of being recognized, man, it speaks to, you giving people the motivation that they need. It's, a Monday morning. We know that from a weekend, a lot of people have woken up sluggish and not feeling like they should be going through ahead of this week. But now, while Musi was reading, I heard that, you've received recognition like the Nappy Run ambassadorship and a Toastmaster certification. Can you just, run us through that? How have these milestones empowered your advocacy?
Yes, definitely. So for me, Toastmasters was all about honing my skills in speaking and connecting with different people. So it was definitely an experience for everyone. I think it gave me confidence. It gave me understanding in speaking, in public speaking, in connecting and networking. I think it was a great experience.
Yeah.
It was definitely a learning experience and I really enjoyed it. For me, being an ambassador for the Nappy Run, or even for when I partook in sort of like Arms of Mercy events and rare diseases, it was all about just sharing my perspective and the connection to the project, and also being able to use my platform to give the project a broader share and view. And giving back is always a big part of everyone's day-to-day life. I think we owe the people who have given us so much back in return. And for me and our trust fund, we've always been given so much that I always want to give back where I can as well.
Yeah. You know, when listening to you speaking, man, I just want to ask myself, how is, your daily life? Because if you're a motivational speaker, all we think is when you wake up with motivation. Afternoon is motivation. Dinner is motivation. Every week is motivation.
Yeah.
But can you just let us know, just to give us a clarity of how your day is looking like from day to day basis when you wake up until the end of the day?
Yes, so I definitely call this my passion project also because I do have a job, an adult job, I call it, because you have to pay the bills. So I work in corporate communications. I got my honors in 2020. So I am working in corporate, but it is important to remember, and I learned this, I'm going to say the hard way, but although I am a motivational speaker, I'm not always a ray of sunshine
Yeah. Okay.
or
Yeah.
always the happiest person. It's important to remember that you don't always have to be the happiest person in the room. It's not about being unrealistic and creating this unrealistic expectation, but it's
Yeah.
also about knowing that when you do have the low times or the bad days, that you
Yeah.
find the positive, and that by the next day or in a few hours, you found your own way out of it in order to go back to the person you know and want to be.
So look, man, with and I love how you describe it, like you having an adult job, right? I love that so much. So talk to me. With all of these challenges that you've faced and the odds that you've beaten, what are some of the misconceptions that you've found? Go along with having a rare disease or someone who is in a chair and can't do, I guess, what is conventionally the normal stuff that any other person can do. What are some of those misconceptions, and how do you feel that we should try as individuals in society try to break them and shy and move away from them?
There's a lot of expectation that often if you are physically disabled, you are mentally disabled, which I think is a very big misconception. But the other one is also that people have zero expectation of you to achieve anything in your life. They just want you to sort of sit and watch TV and drink your tea and just
Yeah.
survive,
Yeah.
and it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving. I also want to achieve things, and I also want to do what everybody else wants to do. I can also imagine myself getting married and having children and getting a job, but I'm only going to be able to do that if I live in a society that gives me that opportunity.
Yeah.
But I also need to be willing to work hard if I'm given that opportunity.
Yeah. Still in conversation with Miss Kerry Walsh, who is a motivational speaker. I can see right now on YouTube we have Miss Tembimni. A very good morning, team. Hashtag Vuga Breakfast Show. Hashtag Sivugile. And then Tumza Six comes in and saying Kerry Walsh really beat the odd. Tenfold, hundredfold. God is bigger. That is a shout out from one of our viewers right there on our YouTube. And also we expect some of the engagement right there on Facebook, because we are live on Facebook and YouTube. So please do the right things. So Ms. Kerry, in terms of accessibility, how do you define true accessibility, and what does it look like for you in everyday life?
Accessibility is definitely about not doing the tick box exercise and just saying, oh, we go to parking, we maybe have a ramp, cool, we're done. It's about making sure that those accessible elements that you've provided, they work, and they're valid, and that they're going to help someone. And I fully believe that all accessibility should be approved or run or designed by someone who is actually disabled.
Yeah.
Because too often it's just, oh, well, we put the ramp in. Yeah, but did you ever try and drive up the ramp in a chair? Because if you didn't and it's super steep, you're not actually helping anyone. You're just making their life more difficult and more dangerous. So I really hope that accessibility becomes a broad understanding, a broad term, and a legality when it comes to buildings.
Very, very interesting stuff. So, when we're going through your bio, and we just shared, of course, with our viewers and our listeners that you're also an author, which is something amazing for me. Such
Yeah.
cool stuff. And you've written a memoir called Finding My Feet, right, which tells your personal story. So for someone who's not aware of or who's not knowledgeable about who Kerry Walsh is and what her story is, what do you think or what do you feel is the message that you would love someone who's reading your memoir for the first time? What should I take away from it, and what should I learn from it essentially when I'm reading it for the first time?
So the book is aimed at reaching both sort of sides of the story. So I wanted to represent those with the rare disease and living with a rare disease, but I also wanted to reach and maybe communicate to those who know someone with a disability or a rare disease and just needs a little understanding because they don't quite understand how they could help or maybe how they could affect it, or they maybe need a little bit of perspective. But like I said earlier, I don't pretend to be a know-it-all. My book is a perspective. It's my story and my experience. And hopefully it can reach someone and share a perspective of hope and dedication and family and trust in that every day is possible and it's not promised. So make the most of it.
Yeah, and also speaking about communications, because we know that it is getting the message clear to the people out there, whether it's a vast mass, audience of people. And we see that you also have a degree, in communication.
Yeah.
So we just want to know how did it help you to become more effective and advocate and also become, a public speaker?
I definitely think my understanding in corporate communications and communications as a whole has directed the way that I communicate in a very broad manner. It's also made my communication style and strategy very sort of direct and specific. So I think it's always very focused on the message and it's always focused on championing change, accessibility, equality. Like it's always going in the same direction. And due to my knowledge and training, I think I can easily sort of represent a consistent message.
Yeah.
Very, very, very cool stuff. So, there's a young girl, a young boy who's watching out there for the first time and is listening to your story and has never heard or even come across Kerry Walsh, and is also living with a rare disease, or perhaps is also in a chair and is facing all of these challenges that people would face who are in chairs and does not know where to find motivation and does not know who to speak to and is the only one in their family. How would you then, or what are some of the advices and words of wisdom or of hope that you can give to someone who is listening to you and is finding that you've beaten the odds so much tenfold, like one of our watchers and listeners has commented right now? What are some of the things that you would advise them and motivate them, or try to just to bring them up and cheer them up as they go on about to their day-to-day lives?
I would definitely say find your community. There's always someone out there that knows what you're going through, or maybe there's someone out there who just understands you or is willing to listen. But I think it's also about remembering that you're not alone, but maybe family or community isn't necessarily blood. It's someone that you connect with and someone that you find some sort of commonality with. And with that, I think it's important to know that you are not alone and there is always someone out there. Sometimes you just gotta look a little harder maybe. But in today's day, I think you can find a community online and within that you may connect with at least one individual who and would be able to trust at some point.
Yeah, nice. And also have a comment from Zinzi Elizabeth saying, very inspirational indeed, Kerry. Being told that your life expectancy will be at 5 years and today you're 26 years. Thank you for sharing, as this gives hope to many that there are endless possibilities.
So people are clearly absolutely loving and appreciating your story, Kerry.
Yeah.
You're coming on here and you're defying the odds essentially, and I love that so much.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I know that you run the Kerry Walsh Trust, right? And with running this trust, and I'm sure you're also involved with other stakeholders, and you have partners and people that you work with in the trust. What do you hope is the impact that the trust will have in and around our communities and just in society in general? And what would you like people to learn from it and take away from it?
So the trust actually started as a personal trust fund because we couldn't afford the medical expenses that come with having a rare disease and living a day-to-day life with this kind of condition. And we used it to buy like wheelchairs and for my schooling and all those extra expenses that you don't quite comprehend. And then we decided that we also needed to give back. So we tried to find a couple of individuals who we could give some money to as well that would benefit from our fundraisers, especially people that may be in a similar situation that you could have an instant sort of connection with, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the whole idea of the trust and what I hope for it to be in the future is a place where people who have no option can reach out and say, this is where I am and I'm stuck. What do you think we can do and could you maybe help us?
Very, very interesting there. I mean, it's work that needs to always be there for, someone who needs this kind of ways and motivation to get their day going. Because now in South Africa, we know there's so many challenges that as citizens we are facing. And also, when we look into people dealing with a disability. So the question that I want to ask you is, what do you think are the biggest gaps in accessibility, in South Africa today?
I think the biggest gap that we have is knowledge because people don't have an understanding of what accessibility means.
Yeah.
So therefore they can't enforce it and they can't put it into action. Whereas if there was more knowledge, and we all know knowledge is power,
Yeah.
if there was more knowledge about accessibility, I think it would be easier to implement because I don't think people are trying to not do it. I don't think people go out of their way to make somebody else's life more difficult. That's not how people are made. But people are not aware and therefore they're not doing it and not creating these places where people have accessibility. But they don't even know that they're in the wrong. Like they're completely oblivious to the fact that this is not an accessible place.
Very, very interesting stuff. Kerry, thank you so much. We're so happy that you took your time, to spend some time with us this morning and engage with us and essentially share your story and the wisdom and the knowledge that you've gathered over the years. And we love it. We love it so much, man. Thank you. And so, just before we let you go and close off for this morning, is there anything that we are looking forward to with maybe the trust or the K Motivation essay? Is there anything that we can look forward to? We should be on the lookout for, and all of those things.
Definitely the book is always available on my website, and I think the book is going to open so many opportunities for the future. And I'm looking forward to speaking engagements coming up throughout the year. But August is SMA Awareness Month, so K Motivation always does a big sort of social media campaign for that. And that's always a really big push because it's all about awareness and creating knowledge around the whole concept of what it is.
Very, very, very interesting stuff. Because I was actually about to ask that: are there any, events or that happen annually or on a month-to-month basis, whether in person or online, of course, that shed some light on accessibility and persons living with rare diseases and challenges with mobility and visions? Are there any other events that are happening, that you know of or that you are involved in or that you would like people to be knowledgeable about and shed some light on?
I mean, definitely anyone who's interested in any sort of rare disease awareness or events should check out the Rare Diseases Association of South Africa. They do multiple events throughout the year, and they're all based on different rare diseases and conditions that need awareness and fundraising.
Yeah. Very, very, very interesting. Ms. Kerry, once again, thank you so much for taking your time and being here with us on the Vuga Breakfast Show. We hope that next time we are going to have, a conversation again, in terms of how is the progress of what you are doing and, how are things looking like and solving those challenges that you guys face each and every day and daily.
Yes, thank you. I'd love to come back and speak to you guys again. I think this is an amazing Monday motivation. I mean, how else do you want to start a Monday other than a good mood, right?
Yeah.
Definitely. And we do what we call word of the day. And our word of the day for today was resplendent. So I would just wish you a resplendent day ahead of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kerry. We really appreciate it. And, enjoy the rest of your day. And hopefully sometime soon, of course, with some of the talks that you mentioned that are coming up and you're looking forward to, would love to hear from you as to how far you've come now and what are some of the things that you've done. And just to catch up with you and just share some more knowledge and information, around accessibility, disability, and rare disease, of course. So we really, really appreciate you taking the time. We thank you a million times. Thank you, Kerry.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a good day.